Now, this just took an interesting twist after reports revealed the Canucks UFA had outpriced himself on the open market. We get even more reports that Vancouver Canucks have circled back on a pending UFA, but not just that. We get a huge update surrounding Thatcher Demko and his next contract after the Vancouver Canucks extended Kevin Lankinen to his huge deal. We have so much to break down, and Pius Suter heading to the open market with even more reports revealing the Canucks are circling back on him. But not just that, we do get an update on Thatcher Demko and the Canucks' plans with his next contract. We're going to break down all this in this episode, so you're not going to want to miss that. So let's just hop straight into it, let's touch on Thatcher Demko first. We get an update from Thomas Trent's. His entire article of The Athletic will be down below. I still expect the Canucks to find a way to get an extension done with goaltender Thatcher Demko this summer. Despite the commitment they made to Kevin Lankinen in the season, Vancouver's strong preference is to have a strong goaltending tandem. Now, there's a lot to look at this. You have Thatcher Demko, of course, his health issues. We're going to touch on Artur Shilov's and the extension for Kevin Lankinen, but as of right now, the reports we're getting from insiders is the Vancouver Canucks, like it says here, has a preference to have a strong goaltending duo, and it seems like Thatcher Demko is going to get offered an extension heading into next year. Now, we do know they give quite a bit of money to Kevin Lankinen after getting him July 1st last year as a goaltender on a very good deal. They extended Kevin Lankinen until 2030 on a $4.5 million deal. This initial deal had Canucks fans wondering what was happening with their franchise goaltender in Thatcher Demko, but now it does seem very clear and an interesting twist on they're looking at keeping him. Now, the big thing with Thatcher, we know how good he can be as a goaltender. I'm not going to sit here and preach to you guys like a choir that Demko is good, because Canucks fans, we know Demko can and will have Vezina candidate seasons. We've seen it last year with his .918 save percentage. Thatcher Demko can have Vezina candidate seasons, and we know how good and how much we expect him to be good in order for the Canucks to get into the playoffs. So extending Kevin Lankinen did leave some murky air with the Vancouver Canucks, but it does seem like our Vezina candidate goalie is going to end up coming back on an extension if they can work through a deal. And it does get interesting because you have a young blossoming goaltender in the AHL right now from Jeff Patterson looking at the Calder Cup final. So shout out to Abs for Canucks, man. They've been incredible. Shilovs has stopped 150 of 159 shots, a 197 goals against average, and a 943 save percentage. Huge edits in net for Abby so far this season. We know how good Shilovs has been. We've seen him play with the Vancouver Canucks in the playoffs just last year as well. A young blossoming goaltender, the Artie Party, 24 years old. It does get very interesting to see where the Canucks are going to go with this. We know, as we've seen and reported, Thatcher Demko is a guy the Canucks would like to get back. They want to extend him. But the thing is, having Kevin Lankinen locked up until 2030, if you extend Thatcher Demko to a new contract, 1, 2, 3 years, if Artur Shilovs comes into this next camp, if he comes into the preseason looking like a better goaltender than we expected, it's going to get very interesting. I think it very much hinges on if we see the Canucks extend Demko. I don't think this extension is going to happen at this second. It's going to happen at some point in the season, but if Shilovs comes in, if he's dominant, if he's looking like his prime form in Abbotsford right now, there's a strong chance the Canucks might look at Thatcher Demko and not decide his future until going into next offseason. So it's going to get very interesting. But what are you guys' thoughts on this? What is your thoughts on the reports coming out? What is your thoughts on the future of this Canucks goaltending duo? You have Kevin Lankinen locked up, but with the reports of Demko, it's going to get very interesting. What's your thoughts on the Artie Party? Because I'm a huge fan. Listen, shout out to Latvia, because the two studs on this team that are from Latvia have been huge parts of this team, and I cannot wait to see what this kid does with the future of the team. But with that, let's hop straight into the second topic today, where we did get a report coming today, breaking from Rick Dolly. I believe the Canucks have reconnected with Pius Suter's camp in the last 24 hours. Now, we've seen reports flying around from multiple insiders that the Vancouver Canucks might have had Pius Suter outpriced. They didn't want to go after a guy that had a career year going into July 1st. They weren't dead set on giving him the money, but with the center market starting to clear up, the Canucks are looking at this in an investment. They don't have a lot of options on the open market. Right now, John Tavares is set to go back to Toronto. Nick Backstrom might not play hockey anymore. Claude Giroux is reportedly going back to Ottawa. They're working on deals. Mikael Granlund's a very interesting option. Sam Bennett just said that he wanted to return to Florida after winning the Cup. Looking at the center market, there's not a lot of great options to fill in the number 2 spot. Yes, you can still go make a trade, but I think Pius Suter is the perfect player that can come in as a stopover player. We know the Canucks are looking at every option. They've been linked to so many players, from Peterka all the way to Marco Rossi. With the Canucks looking at the center position, with the market getting very dry in July 1st, you don't want to go into a bidding war. So trying to get a deal done with Pius Suter heading in gives you the options to wait a tiny bit before you acquire the center. We know Patrik Allvin and Jim love to make trades in season. We've seen it with Zadorov. We've seen it with Lindholm. This gives them the option to let everything kind of taper off with all these teams actively trying to buy. Every team has been linked to a center. The Canucks were linked to Matt Duchene, who just extended with the Dallas Stars. It's going to get very interesting for Pius Suter, but with his contract, we know there comes some things. They need to figure out the length and how much. We see from Scotia Stats, shout out to them as well, projected 3.8 on a 4-year deal. We see reports flying around that Pius Suter's camp could be asking from anywhere from 3.5 to 4.5. With the cap going up, with the room the Canucks have, I don't think this contract is very bad, and I think it's a very serviceable contract with the cap set to hit almost $100 million. Once the OEL buyout contract, thanks Jim Benning on that, and shout out to his grandson or whoever it was, scoring a goal on the Canucks. I mean, that was terrible to watch. The curse continues, but with Pius Suter on this Canucks team, when the OEL contract's out, that would cover everything you give Pius Suter up to $4.7 million. So you can look at Pius Suter as the ideal third-line center that you're going to use in a second-line role if Filip Hronek slides to the wing to fill out this Canucks lineup. I mean, we've seen Pius Suter. He scored 20 goals with the Canucks team last year, 25, 46 points. We know Pius Suter can work within the lineup as a winger or a center. He's a glue guy. You can put him in anywhere. He's a lead on the penalty kill, and not only that, but 25 goals is very hard to score. Also being a consistent over 10 goal scorer each year. When looking at the Canucks, the biggest thing with Pius Suter is, funny enough, led the Canucks in 5-on-5 goals last season. Looking at Jake DeBrusk, 28 goals, and 14 of those came on the power play. Brock Boeser, 25 goals, 9 came on the power play. But that leaves Pius Suter with 25 total goals, 23 at even strength, 5-on-5. Pius Suter, if given more power play time, if used in right situations, can continue being a 20 goal scorer in this Canucks lineup. 81 games played, only missing 1 game. We've seen Connor Garland with 81, Jake DeBrusk with 82. Pius Suter is a guy, and listen, I don't want to preach too much. Everyone knows how good Pius Suter is and how good he can be on this Canucks team. But the big thing is, if you're filling this lineup, if you want a stopover gap, a guy that can fill in this 2C, until you get a number 2C, if that's a young guy you trade for, if it's a young guy you've already drafted. Looking at the Canucks lineup, you can run a lineup with Pius Suter on that second line, Filip Hronek to the wing, Teddy Bluger on the third line at center between Jonathan Lekermacki, who just scored 2 goals for the Abbotsford Canucks to make it a 3-1 series as well. This is incredible. Right now, Aatu could come in as the 4th line center, and listen, is this the best center depth in the league? No, not even close. But it does give the Canucks time to not outbid on someone. Gives them time to not have to go and overpay for Marco Rossi or overpay for someone else at this position. You can use Pius Suter as your Swiss Army knife throughout this lineup, and I think it's a lot of value that Canucks fans might not like in the very moment. But with this Canucks, with not the deepest prospect pool, we did a video yesterday as well, ranked number 18 across the NHL for prospect pool with McKean's Hockey. If you don't want to gouge all your prospects, this is the best, and in my opinion, the best option to work out with the Vancouver Canucks. But what's your guys' thoughts? There's a lot to take in here. What is your thoughts on the goaltending tandem? What is your thoughts on the Canucks looking at a strong preference to keep a strong tandem and maybe a Demko extension? What is your thoughts on Artur Shilovs? What is your thoughts on the Canucks circling back on Pius Suter? There's so much to take in. Go down and leave a comment below. If there's something you want us to cover, go down and leave that in the comments as well. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back with another episode, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark. Bye and take care. Let's go Abbotsford.